What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
Specifically about the Stephen A, Kyrie and KD rumors, since we were just talking about Golden State and their all-world domination without even KD in the lineup. The rumor going that Kyrie and KD would wind up in New York or New York, either with the Knicks or the Nets, and try to resurrect. Now, the Nets had a pretty good season. I mean, they really rebounded pretty well. The Knicks, though, perennially, frustrating, I think, for their fan base. But big time market, right? Dollars are there. And if that dynamic duo were to bring them back to the top, or at least make them, top 3 team in the NBA and really make good postseason run, it would be a game changer for the city.
It would be a game changer. Yeah. I mean, forget the franchise, the city as well. I mean, it's, that city has dealt with, and that franchise has dealt with a lot of pain and a lot of suffering from that team for such a long period of time. I mean, the problem is that while it would be great to have this workout for the franchise, you still have the same owner, you still have the same team around them, and so even if that goes through, it's like, it sounds great
It
in
won't
theory.
Carmelo itself, but it still may not be as great as it sounds. I totally agree with you there. I mean, and there's a lot of distractions in that city. It would do an amazing thing for the Boston-New York rivalry, like for basketball, right? We've had it in the other sports, and maybe we've dabbled in it in the past in terms of basketball, but not at the same level as the other sports. But Kyrie ditches Boston, goes to the Knicks. That's instant fire. And then what if the Celtics re-signed Terry and it
Oh my
wound up
gosh.
being the two of them going mano a mano, even if they do trade? Or what if they get Anthony Davis and Durant, kind of like does this thing where he shirks them twice, right? Goes to New York after not going to Boston. You already know how I feel about Kevin Durant, and I've not been pleased with Kyrie for the most part. So you take those two and just make them villains, stick them in New York, and trade for Anthony Davis and wait and see how that goes. I mean, there would be a lot of drama in the Eastern Conference. Only a few hours, 2 cities, only a few hours from each other.
I know. And I think it's maybe Durant ends up going there. I think that's perhaps what needs to happen, just because of, it seems like this is all set for that to happen, right? He's got the agent who's a New York guy, and his lifelong dream is to be the GM of the Knicks, and that's a weird kind of relationship going on. And it seems as though, certainly when we see what's going on with Golden State and how they're playing without him, it does tend people to look and say, well, they play free now because they don't have, this hanging over them. I think it kind of feels right. But I think what we've seen is that sometimes what we see isn't, on the floor, doesn't always represent, where someone is or where their feelings are. And so, while I think you're right, it's, there's this kind of narrative and this storyline that all kind of plays in, but it feels to me like perhaps that's a bit ahead of where the basketball is at this point. And I'm not sure, if Kevin Durant going there makes sense, because it allows him to kind of save something after being, the guy who, I don't know what the word is, but kind of basically joined up on the All-Star team, right? I mean, that's what he did. Now it's like, I'm going to put everything on my back and take it over myself. I mean, it seems like a foolish errand in my mind, but you could understand that to some degree. But man, that New York situation is really rough. Third pick or not, that's a rough situation. And having watched RJ Barrett for a good part of this spring season, I'm not sure he's really ready to be the third guy behind Kyrie, or let alone the second guy behind KD.
Nah, they'll make another move. But all right, so if you had to bet on it, oh wait, haha, Celtic Stuff Live is powered by betonline.ag. It's the NBA and Stanley Cup Finals, and you can support our podcast by making a wager on your pick by going to www.clnsmedia.com/CSL. And once you get there, use promo code CLNS50 to get a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit. That's huge stuff. 50% cash back bonus, and it's betonline.ag. So would you bet on it, John? Would you bet on KD? Or if you were, what would you put the line? Say 40% he winds up in New York, 25%.
Yeah, I'd say I would no, I'd say probably 50-50 that he ends up there versus the field.
You
I
think it's
think
that strong?
yeah, I think it's
Wow.
that strong. I do. I mean, just because I think that it, it seems like he's not coming back to Golden State, and that probably the best bet for him is to have the whole city of New York at his fingertips. You know, in a way, he can really take over as the second best guy in the league, or now the new, I should say, the new best guy in the league. Now that LeBron has stepped aside, and really take that mantle in New York. I mean, it's all kind of there from a marketing perspective, from that side of it. What I don't think matches up is the basketball, or the abject failure of leadership that we've seen in the ownership of the New York Knicks for years upon years upon years. That isn't going to get fixed by Kevin Durant showing up. So 50-50, I say 50
50-50.
versus the field. I also don't think it's completely unreasonable that if Kyrie comes back, if AD comes here, I don't think it's crazy to think that the Celtics wouldn't make a phone call to see if KD would opt in and trade for him to come here. I don't think we haven't really talked about that lately, but I think that that's a phone call that would be made, particularly if they know that they haven't completely locked down Kyrie and they're going to go ahead with the Brow
Plan B.
trade anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of like a 2B. I don't know. Like, it's because you're still pursuing the same thing, but you're adding on to it. And if they did, then you make the phone call before July 1st and you say, look, if we can lock that down and convince him to opt in and all that. I mean, the draft is somewhat early this year, so you do have some time before that June 30 deadline of trying to make a deal, I guess, or a pre-deal, I suppose, with NBA free agents.
Yeah, the pre-deal is kind of funny though, right? Like the pre
Happens.
but it's a
crazy.
huge gamble, right? If somebody, if you make some moves and somebody pulls off the table, you're stuck with the moves you made.
True.
And
It's
it might
true.
not be what you would have done or what you
Yeah.
would want to do. That's where it gets a little sticky. But
Right.
and the Celtics have 3 picks. They're probably going to pick somebody to stash, unless unless they include them. But the value is pretty low. The other thing Stephen A said, and I want to talk about LeBron a little bit because you threw him out there, but it's almost like he's falling off the map, right? Just the whole which is kind of fun.
Who?
It's kind of fun. It's kind of, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
He falls off the lap. He falls off, and then all of a sudden, Giannis is an all-world beater this year. And he's taking 4 steps. Anyway, so Stephen A says, no way Kyrie goes to LA. But that's not necessarily what we heard from Brian Warnerst, right? So,
Mhm.
that may or may not be the case. I don't think Kyrie wants to pair up with LeBron in LA because I don't think they can sell him on what happened this season and him fixing it. That's why, if he goes to New York, that's different. He's going to pair up with Kevin Durant. He's going to do his own thing. I just don't see him going to LeBron in any circumstance other than, we're pretty much guaranteed to go get a title.
Yeah, I think I think that was something that maybe on LeBron's side there was wishful thinking, and clearly, that's the stuff that filters through the Windhorse. Is those are the things that they want to get out there, right? That they want to try to get out there. Oh no, we're good now. Well, I don't know. Are we good? It seems like those guys are the ones that really kind of started his descent into madness. with all the rumors and all the stuff about AD and saying that Kyrie was going to come to LA. It seems like that all started from Clutch Sports and Rich Paul anyway. So I don't know. I don't think I'd be all that excited about jumping on board to the Los Angeles Lakers if I were Kyrie. I'd want to make my own thing, and I think that's still why Boston.
That's what he thought he was doing in Boston.
The best thing.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. Yeah, but he could. Where that cap space exists, there's lots of play. He gets paid the most in Boston if Boston wants to pay him. That's the other thing. Like, that's the chip that outside of a sign and trade, him trying to control his own destiny and go somewhere else leaves a lot of money on the table. And for some reason, that source of pride directs a lot of these players in a certain direction. It's one thing when you've already made a ton of money and you've already been the highest paid player, and then to take a cut and say, I'm doing it because I want to get another ring or I want to get a ring. But when you're Kyrie and you've been on a fairly cap friendly deal, I mean, it was a big deal when it was signed, but based on the explosion that's happened since then, he's nowhere near making the kind of money some of the other guys have over the last 3 years. Right. So that's a tough one, I think, that is definitely in Boston's favor. And even in the sign and trade, maybe they work something out. And, even if they don't keep him, he's going to get paid, and it's going to go through Boston. I'm actually pretty confident in that. I could see him leaving and going with KD and going to New York. And, if Kate, and here's how that one really works. If he's really willing to take a pay cut of some type because he really wants to build a super team, then it's him and KD on, friendly deals and said third person that they bring in. So then you don't have to worry about, and that's how that gets done. It's kind of the Miami thing all over again, except you don't have a Dwayne Wade sitting around in New York waiting for him to show up. It would actually be 3 players kind of moving on over there, but they could do it, right? If they had 3 $20 million deals, they could absolutely put together quite a team. So that's the only scenario, but I still put it in Boston's favor. He wants to get his max deal. He wants to get paid, and that puts them in the driver's seat and probably puts the kibosh on New York.